Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com. Now, today we have a very interesting episode, a crazy article or news coming out of KPMG. And it's a new way that KPMG is going to be recruiting in a certain country. I won't mention it yet, but it's regarding workplace equality. And so it's a new measure of diversity. And it's not like old diversity where different ethnicity, it's regarding diversity for socioeconomic status. And the article is on Bloomberg and it's an opinion piece. And it's somewhat hard to follow. So I apologize if it's a little bit confusing. But as you know, the European branches of the Big Four accounting firms have been publishing these ESG reports with diversity in them, gender pay gap, like every kind of diversity you can have. And apparently this socioeconomic diversity is a new one that they're going to promote. And it's just I don't know. It's just really confusing, all this stuff that they're trying to do. And this opinion piece says that the reason KPMG needs to do this is because of the Carillion scandal, which we've spoken of extensively on this podcast, and also misleading UK accounting watchdog, FRC. I mean, I don't know about misleading. Of course, all the Big Four accounting firms have done that to some extent, but I mean, the FRC is talking to these guys all the time, and the global chairman of KPMG has come out and spoken about what they said, but apparently the KPMG has run the numbers, and I guess the working class only represents 21% across the firm, and they want it to be 29%. And apparently that 29% is going to solve any scandals and corruption that may come about. And the way KPMG is going to do this is they're going to ask people what their parents' jobs were they professional, intermediate, or working class? And it's based on an established UK schema. And the article says it's far from a perfect measure of socioeconomic background, but it's a useful indicator. So, of course, this is going to it's going to be interesting, because how do you tell somebody, or like how far is KPMG going to go into your parents' background? What if you don't know your parents' background? What if you don't know? What if one of your parents wasn't there? What if you were adopted, etc.? It's just going to be confusing. And then what is like let's say you say your parent was in construction, but your parent actually owns construction companies or is an architect or something like that. I think this is going to be very confusing. It's going to put the recruiters in a weird position. And at the end of the day, I guess the goal, you would say, is that, hey, all these elites are loading up the accounting firms and looking out for each other. Like, I don't think that elite people are sending their kids into the accounting firms to look out for them. If you consider somebody elite in an accounting firm, I think for the most part it's because their parents were accountants. And so if you keep kids from whose parents were accountants from going into the Big Four accounting firms, you're going to lose a lot of their candidates. And I think this is just a signaling type of thing, because at the end of the day, the Big Four accounting firms, their almighty thing that they're always going towards is more revenue. More revenue. They need more employees based on their business model now. And I think they want this diversity of all kinds, and they're going to run up against it just by the sheer number of candidates they need to grow, that they can't grow all of them to be every kind of diversity that they need, whether it's ethnic, race, gender, and socioeconomic. So it's going to be very confusing to onboard people at KPMG at this point. I think there's going to be ways to game the system, and as we learn more, we can probably provide advice on how to do that. But right, these regulators and the accounting firms just beat around the bush all day long about how they're going to solve corruption and scandals, and they're always at the symptoms. They're always at the end problem, which is the completely destructed company, and they're saying, but also not that. It's like, well, the big four accounting firms didn't perfectly audit this company, so let's look at the socioeconomic diversity of the partners, and maybe there's not enough diversity. Like, there's no proof that that does anything. It's just, I think what these people need to do, the regulators, but also the partners, is the easiest thing to do would be spend a day in the life of the big four accountant and be like, okay, what are their main goals? Well, your main goal if you're a big four accountant day to day is getting as many hours as you can and responding to client requests. There's looming deadlines. There's fire alarms to put out. It's for the average person, it's always getting more work and getting as much as work possible to have the highest utilization. There's nothing that comes into your inbox that says, were you ethical today? What was the most difficult thing that you looked at today? What was your confidence in preparing or reviewing that item? Did you do more than just follow prior year? There's nothing like that. It's get your utilization, and then you get all this other stuff in your newsletters that you get from the firm, but there's no action required from those. The action required is get your timesheets in, get the bills out, collect on the bills, release your performance feedback forms, these types of things. It's not, with regards to ethics, it's not about questioning things. It's not about pushing back. It's not about questioning power or like all these things that have the potential to change what the big four accounting firms do in the scandals. The goals are different. So if you really want to change the big four accounting firms, it's not about going to socioeconomic, ethnicity, and background of a person and trying to mix that up, because basically what you're saying is people are born a certain way and those people are inherently flawed and we can't change anything about that, so we need to change the mix up. I don't understand that. And the big four accounting firms are just taking on more regulation, more admin. You're going to have to like slice yourself up into these little buckets, and you're going to have to, if you're already working in the big four accounting firms, you're going to have to report on your buckets. It's going to get really confusing, and I think the big four accounting firms are just, this is another way they're tripping over their feet. So it's very confusing, but I think it's interesting. And I mean, these are very large firms with a lot of employees, so I think they fall into these traps. But I'll be interested to see how this pans out, and the other big four accounting firms, to see how they adopt it as well. So that's the podcast for today. Make sure to subscribe to get future updates, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also make sure to check out the show notes to this podcast. Thanks for listening.